melt is when I'm ocean waves.
Today on Noble Legends podcast, I have Freedom coach Darryl Overton, who just won a state championship Virginia class 6 championship with his Freedom team. Coach, thanks for doing this and nice to meet you.
You too, man.
Well, first of all, you've had, let me give you a brief introduction for some of the folks, maybe Fairfax County folks north of me that know you quite as well, because you are a Prince William native. You went to Hylton High School,
Yep.
I believe class of 99. You won a state championship. I believe you're as a wide receiver. Next year you played quarterback and defensive back. Your brother, Jeff, a few years younger than you, also a star running back at at Hylton, and also coaches with you. And maybe even more importantly, has a son who's a heck of a ball player, who plays tailback for you. It was Jeff Overton Jr. You also coach basketball girls at Freedom. You recently won the Washington Post Coach of the Year, which I don't think it's typical that Virginia folks win that. So that's quite an honor. And also to round off a historic month for you, I think you've been cited by Prince William County for some human rights award that you're going to win in January. You've had a great month, Coach.
Yeah, so far so good. You were right. I'm 2001 at Hylton, and my brother won the state championship in 03.
03, okay.
And my two younger brothers both played at Freedom as well. Howard Jones and Deion Jones. Howard went on to play in the NFL for 8 years with the Bucks, Steelers, and the Bears. And then my other brother's a teacher at Martinsburg High School. And then I coached my son as well at Freedom, who went to VMI to play football. So, yep, we've been in the area doing it a long time.
Yeah, so you're a Prince William guy. And so so we started these Facebook groups during the lockdown. And when I played sports, Prince William and Loudoun were completely separate from the northern we called the northern region back then. Now it's divided into northern region and Occoquan region. But Arlington, Alexandria, and Fairfax, there wasn't a lot of interchange between us and Prince William. Prince William back then, there was only Garfield, Potomac, Woodbridge, and out west you had Osbourn Park. And those teams were great teams, basketball and football, great athletes. But we never played them. And it wasn't until we started doing summer leagues up in, I think around the mid to late 90s in basketball, we started, getting to know them a little bit more in basketball. So as a Prince William guy, a Hylton guy, what is your relationship with the folks up north in Fairfax? Is it a different sports culture, a different sports scene, or are those areas become more blended over time, or at least since you played?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's a different sports scene. I think, Fairfax has so many schools that they typically don't have to look outside their area to find games, if that makes sense, where they got enough schools to accommodate a 10-game schedule. I think Prince William, doesn't do that because of how the region is set up and you'll play all the teams in the playoffs. I also think it's one of the things that hurt our area when people talk about like opponents' district record. If some of the Fairfax teams would play some of the Cardinal District teams, and the Cardinal District teams, usually the teams that they play outside of conference is Patriot and Battlefield. So you're playing the other two best teams, in the region usually. But I think Fairfax just has the luxury that they just have so many teams that they don't have to. I think a lot of people have kind of blended, like you said, and I see a lot of guys that were from Stafford or Woodbridge coaching now at some Fairfax schools, where I think you've kind of seen the old regime of the Fairfax coaches like phase out, like Coach Renner, Coach Henderson, the Bendorfs, Coach Pannoni. Like you kind of saw like all those guys phase out like kind of at the same time, who were all, legends and guys that did it for a long time. So I just think you kind of see that. But, that's all.
Yeah, we don't write Coach Pete Bendorf off. I'm talking to him on Monday. He's still alive and he's still alive and kicking him in football. So, Coach, I played basketball at Robinson in '84. I played a little bit of football, and I have not been in the football scene at all. I haven't really followed it very closely. Haven't really followed basketball as much as I used to because my son plays soccer, but I still involved in social media. So this fall. I wouldn't have known Freedom South Riding from Freedom Woodbridge. I don't know much about, the area. I know the old Prince William schools, like I said, because I played, we played a little bit against Garfield and Potomac and Woodbridge. But I don't know the newer schools quite as well. But one thing I saw right away, your team was putting on some incredible scores. And I have never seen a team put scores up like that. And so I criticized it because I just had never seen it. And then I quickly realized, and it was pointed out to me that others are putting up scores like this as well. It's not just Freedom. The game is a little bit different than as I remember the game. The offenses score quickly. But one thing that people came back at me with right away is there is some politics of Prince William County. I guess Freedom maybe hadn't been treated with some of the respect. Maybe they'd been at the bottom of the pecking order for years. And these are things, if you're not in the football culture or Prince William scene, you may not know. Anyway, just quickly, what is your philosophy? When you're coaching kids and this happens to any good team, it happens a lot in basketball. When you have a mismatch and when you're beating people pretty soundly, what is your philosophy to your team? Do you play until the scoreboard is zero? And has the politics of Prince William County have anything to do with it? Now, again, I don't know the politics, but I can assume eastern part of the county, more diverse, probably socioeconomically a little bit, lower on the socioeconomic scene in terms of money. But these are things I might not know as well as some people. So anyway, what would be your response to those things?
Well, the main thing is, I think, regardless what has took place at our school, it's not really, an axe to grind against the other coaches in schools. If you want to be quite honest, I'm pretty good friends with Forest Park coach, Garfield coach. I had a good relationship with the activities director at Hylton. So it's not like you ever approach it like, oh yeah, we're mad at these people, we're going to do this to them. A lot of these coaches, honestly, like the Woodbridge coaches knew. Me and him talked, over there somewhere about, a kid reached out to me that was at his school, and I was like, he's trying to figure out how to play football. So I really don't have a personal axe to grind against any of the people that's necessarily in my district. Things that have happened, unfairly to us or whatever, really didn't come from those guys. It's just a matter of, I tell people all the time, we kind of have a disadvantage just because of our numbers. We're very, very light on the number of bodies. But the way I always do it, honestly, and I know me, like I said, you've talked, is if we're ahead and the other team concedes, then we do the same thing. We had a game this year, and I won't say the team because I'm disrespectful. They agreed to send an email to the VHSL to get a running clock on Monday. You know what I mean? And we agreed to it, because it wasn't about trying to embarrass them. That there was going to be a running clock in the second quarter, no matter what, just because they didn't want the score to get out of hand. And even at our own school, we had meetings on how to, kind of help and keep that from happening so much. And, even my own people activities director said, if the other team doesn't concede and continue to throw passes and do all that stuff, then we can't really control it. But the stuff that we can control, like I tell people all the time, is we're going to play. I'm not going to ask my guys that practice all week, that pour their heart and soul into it, that, don't go out there and take knees and stuff like that. They're just not realistic. And I think anybody that played the game know, you can't play it that way. But we never approach it. Something was brought up, a suggestion that I call the opposing coach on Monday and tell them and come up with a game plan of what we're going to do if we get up by a lot. And one thing about me, I love the game, But I feel like that's disrespectful. Like for you to have the audacity to call somebody the Monday game and say, okay, this is what we're gonna do when we start beating you bad. I just think that's distasteful. I'd rather somebody play me, because like you said, I've been on the other end of this where my team wasn't, the better team. I would never want somebody to call me and talk to me 6 days in advance on how they're gonna beat me on Friday. And so I just think that's one of the things. And then, like you said, if people, one thing that people don't notice, like if you sub people in the game, so I'm conceding. So I'm subbing a backup lineman, backup quarterback, and you still got your starters out there. And then because we put in the backups, what does everybody start doing? Blitzing everybody, which you hadn't been doing all game. So, that's the little things that happen within the game that, our offense is already built in to deal with. So, sometimes it looks that way, but again, it's no bad relationships between me and the coaches in my area. And quite honestly, I talk to all of them a lot on a personal level on the phone, or we see each other and stuff like that. So it's never that. I just think, like you said, sometimes people look at it, take it that way. To be honest, most of those guys this year, after we played them, they told me how good our team was and that we should win it, and showed a lot of, respect and admiration for what we were doing. But, like you said, it's always going to make some people upset. But, like I tell people, my allegiance is to my kids and my school and my program. And again, I love the game, so I would never disrespect it. But like you said, it's just, if the other team concedes, then we do the same thing. And I think sometimes people take it a misconception. Like, my AD was new this year, and we were up ahead in the vaunted Colgan game. And, he was like, why are you passing? With the backups in, he's like, why are you passing? I said, because sometimes when you're this physically dominant, running the football is worse. And he was like, well, just run it. So, at least when you're throwing short passes, like old school football, there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you throw the football. There's not a lot of things that's going to go wrong if you run it. And he was like, well, let's just run it and try to get out. I said, watch this. I put a defensive lineman in the backfield, handed the ball off. He ran a 58-yard touchdown. And we hadn't moved the ball the prior two plays because the backup quarterback, the backup lineman, the protection is not as good. Time is not as good. And I said, so I honestly always think about it in the midst of the game. It's just, it's tough to regulate, especially like you said, if you're better than the team, running the football sometimes is worse because nothing can go wrong. If you're physically better, then you're just going to push them around and it's going to go bad. But that's it.
Are you excuse me? Are you concerned with the messaging to the kids? Like one of the things, so you got a lot of people that love you. So if you ever say anything a negative against freedom, people come at you to the woodwork. I mean, it ain't death threats, but I mean, I feel like Stephen A. Smith sometimes because I made some comments. I didn't even know you, coach, and I didn't even know much about freedom. But I got thrust into this thing. But one thing that I did hear, is there a messaging thing to your kids? Is that you play to the last second, and then if for some reason you don't really run the score on another team, you are somehow letting yourself down, and you're not playing 100%. Is there some kind of messaging that you're trying to give the kids as well?
I think there's, like you said, and I think, like you said, I've seen where, you might have commented and said something. I think it's this. I am a leader of young men all the time in real life. Like you said, I'm gonna get a humanitarian award. I run the youth league. I just was in the paper for all the charity stuff that we do every single year. So, my message to my kids is clear. They know how to humble themselves and how about helping others. Like they know that. The thing with football is like you said, it's competing till the end. And I think people just, like you said, I'm okay with it. I know it may rub somebody the wrong way, but it's never a mindset like we're going to run the score up. It's just we're playing the game the way that it's supposed to be played all the way through. And some people, I agree, high school athletics, everybody's not going to go and on to the next level. But again, like you said, when you come from where some of our kids come from, and like you said, being a Title I school, going to the next level is very important. It is. And, people can sit here and act like it's not. It may not be that important to you because you can afford it if it doesn't happen. A lot of kids in our situation can't. With that being said, like I said, it's always, love and allegiance to them. And again, the people that know me, the other coaches, they don't even take it that way. Again, it's just the way our offense is built. And again, it's just the way we've gone about it. But like you said, I don't think I know that I've done a great job with leadership in my kids and in real life situations and how they should conduct themselves. And I've given them the biggest example of how to do that. And like you said, I'm gonna get an award for it January 14th from the smallest group to the oldest group. I make sure they take care of business in our community and doing different things.
Congratulations again about that, Coach. So one thing, and I talked to Coach Counts about this, is Vienna Youth Club is very well integrated into Madison High School, and it's always been like that, even when I played. And other programs like that as well. I went to Robinson. I played Braddock Road, and there's no integration. Braddock Road kids play for 5 or 6 different high schools. I understand you have a great youth program. How does it work in Prince William County? Because I know you have youth football and you have middle school football, which we don't have generally. I think they have it in Alexandria. They have it in Alexandria, but we don't. So explain your youth program and also talk about your integration with middle school football.
Yeah. So ironically, I played for Braddock Road too.
Oh, you did? Oh.
Yep. I played for Harvey Hoddle. I played for Coach Dick Holmes. I played with guys because my grandmother lived there for a long time. So that's where I played coming up as well. But, I think it's the same way. Like, Playmakers Elite, like you said, I founded it, and we had, almost the best kid on every team played for our organization at some point. And not just from, Woodbridge. I'm talking about all the way to Stafford. We got kids, all the way in Richmond, Virginia Beach that played for our organization that drive up here 3 hours during the week. So I think
is it contact or is it 7-on-7?
Contact. We have both. We have contact football. We got 7-on-7. We got flag. Got it all. So, it's one of those things where, it's, to be honest, I started it before I even came to Freedom. I was working in Stafford, Virginia. So, it's one of those things that was put into place. I was fortunate enough now that it's grown to the point, and my responsibility became more that I stepped away from the ownership role and just the founder. But, like you said, it's just like any other youth league anywhere else, man. It's just a lot bigger. We just had a 7U team win the national championship, and the 12U team went back-to-back. So we got football from 6 to 13. Then we got girls AAU basketball. Then we have flag. Then we got 7-on-7. So like you said, it's kind of grown. We got teams in Maryland. We got not just in Virginia. We got teams in Maryland as well. So like you said, it's one of those things that you watched it grow. But like you said, it really just started, you know why? Because my son, when he was 9 years old, didn't have nowhere to play. And I started it. And we had 2 teams the first year. And we grew from 2 teams to 8 teams in 1 year. So that's where it came from, honestly.
And those kids all play for middle schools in Prince William County when they get that old. So they all eventually play. And are the middle schools in Prince William, do they have good coaching? Is it very well organized?
I think it's well organized. I think coaching is subjective, you know what I mean? Because you got to remember this. You're asking somebody to volunteer their time for very little pay at the middle school level. So a lot of times you get guys who are willing to do it just so the kids can have it. I'm not going to say it's bad coaching, but like you said, it's subjective. I think it's improved over the last 3 years. I think at one point it did seem pretty bad and unsafe. But, the kids, like I said, from the youth org play everywhere.
Does your style of play at Freedom, and we'll get into it, does your youth program, is it conducive to that style of play? Are you training kids at a young age to be able to run kind of complicated passing systems, or is it just you just got talented kids and you're teaching them the fundamentals of football?
Well, to be honest with you, people make fun of me all the time because the team that I actually coach in my youth organization, we run wing T. We don't even run spread. But this is why I tell people, because I think that's one that's trickling down to youth that's messing up youth sports. When you're playing youth sports, you should be a football player. You should be able to run, block, and tackle. You shouldn't be 9 years old and your parents coming to me saying you're a slot receiver. I'm like, so you can't run the ball? You can't do anything else but play slot receiver? You get what I mean? So I kind of stick with the wing T offense because it teaches everybody how to block, how to tackle. Everybody's accountable every play. Nobody's just standing out there at receiver, looking pretty. It makes everybody accountable. So kind of the opposite at the youth level. We're more fundamental based and, about, running, blocking, tackling, and creating football players, not specialists. I think you become a specialist when you get to college. You know what I mean? I think you need to be the best football player you can be coming up in youth and in high school as well.
How did you develop your offensive style? Is it just you use that style because you have the personnel that can play that style, or is that the way you want to play football? And how did you develop that style?
Well, it's the way that I want to play football. Like, we want to be a fast break team, up tempo team. Of course, I think every year you kind of got to tweak it to fit your personnel here and there. We've had 4 quarterbacks who have all done phenomenal numbers. 3 of them have gone on to play Division I football. Tristan will be, next in line as he gets to come back. I think you kind of got to cater it to each quarterback's strength. Quest, who's at North Carolina Central, wasn't as a prolific runner, but he was a great passer and a very good football IQ. So that's kind of where we implemented more RPO stuff, where we had A.J. Felton, who was a dynamic athlete and runner, and we were more gap scheme, featuring the quarterback running, stuff like that. And then we had Davis Bryson, who was at Kennesaw State, who was kind of more like A.J., where he was a dynamic runner. So we kind of went back to that type of stuff. And then now I think Tristan, I know Tristan is kind of the total package. So I think you're seeing now we got a guy that can be dynamic running, and he can handle all the mental decision-making and responsibilities. And again, he's surrounded by guys that are dangerous when they get to football. So our philosophy on offense has been the same. Like anybody else, we've gotten better. We've gotten better every year since I've been here as far as what we want to do and how we want to do it. I think the trick every year is identifying what this team does well and what they don't do well. We have a variety of things that we can do every week. But we identified early on what this group was really good at. And like I said, I think that's the trick.
Important to your success is your tactics, the way you run offense. Because could you put in this year's team in a wing T and been just as successful? Obviously you couldn't have scored as many points out of the wing T, but you could have, your games could have been just as dominant in their own way. Do you think your success would have been the same in a more conservative type of offense?
Yeah, I think we would have been as successful. Like you said, it may not have looked, as pretty as I guess you would say, but I think we still would have been successful. But sometimes I feel like, I picked Madison to beat Fairfax because I know Coach Couch and Madison, they do a really good job on defense with run fits and stuff. Once I saw Fairfax was running wing T, formation, I said, Coach Couch and them, they're not going to let you get away with that. So I think, we could have been effective, but it would have been more of a struggle to generate points sometime, because when you kind of condense formation, now you kind of bring the coaching into it a little more. Like when you got a good coach on the other side, he can make sure he's sound gap-wise. Stuff like that kind of offset what you're doing. We've shown the ability to do both. Like, we started off versus Western Branch in our double tight stuff because we didn't feel like they did a good job with run fits and stuff like that. We didn't go to that at all versus Madison because we felt like they did do a good job. We felt like we had the advantage, on the perimeter. So, as good as we may be, I take that into account every week. And I think, like you said, we could have been successful, but I think, some coaches and teams would have been a little bit able to game plan a little more to stop what we were doing if we weren't in what we are.
Does this make coaching more enjoyable for you that you're an innovator and you're doing things different, or would you enjoy kind of the smash mouth football just as much?
I think when you're in the heat of competition, I enjoy both. You enjoy both just as much. You just want to make sure you're on the right side of it. I think all of us at some point, and like you said, even you with your son, I enjoy this because I love being impactful for young people, man. Like you said, to come to Freedom, Title I school, and we have to date 22 Division I players and 26 plus D2 and D3 players. Like you said, you just love being impactful. But I'm a football guy, so I don't care. Either way I got to get it, I'll take it. If it got to be smash mouth, we'll take it. We've had games in the past where we handed the ball to the running back 40 times. So I think, like you said, being a football coach, a good one anyway, you gotta be willing to do what it takes to win. And I'll give you a little nugget. When we played Manchester in the state championship and they beat us pretty bad, we were having great success in our double tight stuff and more heavy sets. We had great success running and throwing, and I didn't have the discipline to stay in it because it didn't look good enough. And after that game, I promised myself I'd never do that again. Whatever it takes to win a game, we're going to do it. So, I kind of been on the other end of that where clearly we're having success when we're in our heavy sets and stuff. And I went away from it just because it didn't look good. You know what I mean? So I learned that lesson the hard way on the biggest stage. So
Is it tough to practice if you play a certain way and you're playing against Madison or Yorktown? My kids go to Yorktown, a very traditional football team. How do you practice for them when you're scrimmaging in practice? You have a kind of a high powered kind of a I don't know exactly what do you call your offense, coach?
Fred RPO, yep.
Yes, man. I mean, so how do you practice when you play a certain way and 30% of the other teams are going to play another way? Especially because you have low numbers. So you can't run everything. Is it make it challenging to practice for other types of style?
Well, I'm gonna say this. I think every team presents its own challenge in whatever you're getting ready for. When you're talking about a team like Madison, Yorktown, I say this, that stuff sometimes is easier to run with a scout team in a book than moving parts. Now, when you talk about triple option teams and Coach Stonebridge and them single wing, now that stuff is hard to simulate in practice. It's very hard to simulate. So, yes. But like you said, I felt like the advantage that we had, over a lot of teams this year is we could simulate them in practice. They couldn't simulate us personnel-wise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, Coach Count says we can simulate them, but we just can't do it fast. We just can't do it fast like this.
Yeah, so I saw, when I watched them, we were coming into the power 10, they were warming up, and I saw the guys they had on scout defense, and I was like, well, we're going to look a little different than that. And then even the guys on scout offense that they were running our offense, I was like, that's the play, but that's not the same guy getting the ball. Where on the other hand, for us, they have a good running game. We can simulate their personnel better than they can simulate ours, by far. Outside of the quarterback, I thought the quarterback is pretty good and not talked about enough. But we can simulate their running back. We got guys that can run the ball tough, and we can simulate the people on the outside. So I think that's the challenge, kind of opposite of what you said. It's hard to simulate us in practice. It's not hard to simulate, some of those guys and those traditional offenses. It may not be as fun going over it, but it's not hard to simulate. I think when you start getting into, the wing T and the single wing stuff is when you have an issue because you'll never run that stuff at the speed, that those triple option guys, Massaponics, Stonebridge, that those guys run that stuff. You'll never be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get back to this season in a minute, but I want to get to your career. So what kind of player were you at Hylton? So, now you're a coach. To me, you're still a young man. Cause when you're 56, a guy like you're a young man to me, but, what kind of player were you? Were you easy to coach? would Coach Overton, would you like to coach Darryl Overton?
100%. Like you said, I had the luxury of playing for Hall of Fame coach Bill Brown.
I'm sorry, what was his name?
Bill Brown
Bill
at
Brown.
Hylton.
Mm-hmm.
And I got him and his son John Brown to work under them for 6 years at Colonial Forge. But in high school, I was like kind of like everybody was back then, and I was a football player. Like you said, I started at receiver 1 year, then the next year we need a quarterback. Then I started at quarterback, and that's kind of how you were brought up. Then you played what you were supposed to play. My coach, they joke me all the time that I didn't talk as much when I was in high school as I do now. I didn't. I didn't learn that until I went to school, all the trash talking. But I was really easy to coach, and I know that for a fact, and even more so, take pride. My son was the same way. So, I know I was easy to coach because I wanted to win. And like you said, we actually ran wing T with Coach Brown at Hylton in those state championship teams.
Yeah. So what exactly did you learn from Coach Brown that you use as a coach today?
No excuses and no explanations. And we tell that to the kids, no matter if it's football or school. You don't need an excuse or explanation if you're doing things the right way. You only need an excuse or explanation if you haven't. So I think that's that's one thing that stuck with me from him, from coaching all the way on, is no excuses and no explanations.
Coach, you won a state championship as a player.
Yeah.
What are some of your memories from that game?
Truthfully, to be honest, I had good memories, obviously, fun times, but I dropped the pass that haunted me, the whole next week. I ran a post route wide open, perfect pass, Kenny Irby, threw it, who's now a coach at Colgan, offensive coordinator. I dropped it, and the huddle seemed like it was back in Woodbridge. And then the next play, we called the same play the other way to a gentleman named Boyd Odin, who went to Richmond, and he caught it. And then it was on every news channel every day the whole next week. So good memories, but I'll never forget that part of it. And then, like you said, my senior year, getting hurt, me and Ahmad Brooks both, when we had a really good team, we broke our ankle in the same game. And we kind of went from being favorites to, trying to get through the playoffs. And we lost to that great Deep Creek team with D'Angelo Hall, Darryl Tapp, Chris Clifton, Damon Anderson. They had like 6 Virginia Tech guys on that team, but, we were watching from the sideline.
Coach, did you play basketball and baseball in high school?
So I did play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I played basketball, started in basketball. Baseball, I played when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And then I was standing in the outfield one day. It was a JV baseball game, 10th grade. And I was like, why am I out here? I got tired of it. So I let baseball go. And then senior year is when they brought lacrosse to the area first time as a sanctioned sport. It wasn't a club sport. And you remember back then, hockey and lacrosse were club sports. And the coach was like, just try it. And we tried it, and we were really good at it until we played somebody that was really good at it, like a Robinson or something like that. But so I've encouraged all my guys. A lot of them play lacrosse. Obviously, a lot of them play basketball. I just think that's what you should do in high school. You should play everything that you can. A lot of guys, field the wrestling team for our school. I think you should do it all. If you can, do it all.
Coach, who was your basketball coach at Hylton?
It was actually Coach Brown and Officer Smith. So the school resource officer, Coach Bill Brown, and the coach that's currently coaching at Hylton was an assistant then. Mm-hmm. And he came up from Bevel Middle School, and then he was with us ever since. Yep.
What did you learn? What did you learn about coaching basketball from them? And also, how do you compare coaching basketball and coaching football? I mean, do you have passion for both? And can a good basketball coach be a great football coach and vice versa? I would imagine leadership and inspiration probably works both ways.
Yeah. Comparing the two, like you said, I feel like a good coach can coach anything. Like I feel like Pat Summitt can coach football if she wanted to. You know, be like, and I feel like if she came out there and was like, I'm coaching this, she'd be really good at it. I think the difference in basketball is, you know, you kind of gotta manage less personalities, but it's a more ego-driven game, negatively wise. So you kind of gotta find balance with that at all times. I think the thing that, you know, I do that I can't turn on and off as much from basketball to football is basketball. I tend to still yell like I'm on the football field sometime out loud, and I got to remind myself, you know, sit down and don't, you know what I mean, let it tone it back. Not that I'm saying anything negative, but I think that's a bigger difference. But I think, like you said, if you gift it and make an impact with young people, I think it's just a gift you got. I think you got to do your diligence. I don't care which sport you coach, to keep learning and evolving and getting better. You know what I mean? I think that's something that I've done too with basketball. Is I've had to sit back and kind of, you know, tweak some things so that we can get better at it. And I think this year we're going to, you know, have a lot of success even there too. But like you said, it's a different game because it has so many independent variables. Where football is more, all right, you know, this guy's going to line up here and do this. In basketball, just because the person last time you screened, they went under, next time they might go over top, which creates a totally different read for you offensively. So basketball is always changing, doesn't have as many absolutes as football. So I think you kind of got to teach the game more there for people to understand. But football, talent can get you by without learning the game early on. In basketball, that really don't work all the time. You got to know the game and have a great feel for it to play it at a high level. You can be athletic and talented, but to score and do all those things at a high level in basketball, you got to have a feel for the game. That's because it's a lot of scorers in basketball that aren't super talented athletically. They just got a great feel for the game, how to get off screens, where to attack defenses. So I think that's the difference. I'm sorry. I know I'm rambling, but
No, that's good.
basketball just has so many independent variables, and it's frustrating for me as a coach. With football, I can prepare for all of this stuff. Basketball, you can't. Like, you can prepare for it, but you prepared all week for man-to-man, and this team said, we can't guard you man-to-man. Now we're going to sit back in the 2-3 zone.
Yeah.
Or they take the coaching out of it, and they press you. Now it's up to your kids.
You know, I think when you coach football nowadays, you let your players make some decisions out there. It's not all choreographed, but that's even to a much further extent in basketball. Your players have to be able to make decisions. And as you're saying, as a football coach, you can't regulate everything. As a basketball coach, you can't regulate everything. It's, what about the psychology of coaching women as compared to coaching men? I mean, I see you on the sideline, coach. You're kind of animated in football. You know, when you coach girls, you probably have to have a little bit lighter touch. Not that I want to generalize.
No, I'm gonna be honest. I coach them tough the same way.
You do?
Now, I love them up the same way. Just like the boys, they know anytime, you know, they can come out my office. I got food for them, water. The key to the kids is food. As long as you feed them all the time, they gonna love you. And the girls, you know, I got the same love for them that I do the boys. So they'll do anything for me as well. But it's like you said, sometimes, and I learned that too, watching that Pat Summitt documentary on ESPN. Once I saw her and Coach Ariel coaching, I was like, well, I'm not doing nothing over the top, because they were coaching, you know, no matter who was out there the same way. But like you said, sometimes with girls' sports, it's the other things that are affecting their mood. And it's, you know, well, she was mad at me yesterday and wouldn't talk to me in the hallway. And, you know, so it's all that stuff. As like you said, if you love being impactful with young people, you take your time and try to figure out how to reach every person and what makes them tick. So I love that part of it. But like you said, the girls will change up on you in a second. They'll change up on you in a second. But you know, I enjoy.
I got a few back here. So
they'll change up on you in a second. But I enjoy it, and I will say, you know, I have a close-knit group that honestly I love them, and watching them from the beginning. You know, when we had girls that never played basketball before last year, 4 of them started, and now see what they're able to do. I know I'm doing it the right way and pushing them. I know at times it's tough. It's tough. And they've let me know that. But, I think, like you said, when you build a relationship with kids and they trust you and they know you love them, they'll let you push them. And if you don't have that relationship, they're not going to let you push them.
Yeah. I think Bill McCafferty, the coach of Colorado, said that when kids can feel when you're authentic, if they know you're authentic, and then I think you can get away. I don't want to say get away with stuff, but you got credibility with them that you may not have if they don't really trust you. Coach, what's it like coaching against Coach Kelly from Osbourn Park? She's got a great reputation.
Well, she don't got a great reputation. She's great. I haven't had the opportunity to coach against her.
Okay.
Because, they're kind of in that Cedar Run district and we haven't played. But I honestly watched them, and me and the girls were just watching them. And I feel like this, she's at the top of her class. And I told the girls myself, we're trying to get there. And they don't have, I watched Sidwell and Friends. They got all these girls going to D1, all that. Coach Kelly may not have that right now. She may have some young girls that may end up being that. But like I told my girls, regardless of their talent, they do everything else better than everybody. And that's what we got to get at. Boxing out, sprinting the help, hedge and screen. They do all of those things better than everybody else, regardless of their talent. So that's what we're trying to get to. Honestly, we watched them for about 45 minutes of film over the break because they're the top dog in our region. And we got to make it through our district first. But I wanted the girls to see, it's not all about, your athletic capability and talent. And me too. Like, I got to figure out how to make those things important in my girls the way Coach Kelly has. But obviously, she's a standard, nothing but respect. You can see it no matter who she has on the floor. They're the same good program. So that's the way to get to.
Yeah. How meaningful would it be for you to win a state championship in girls basketball? Now, you won one in football now, so you checked that box. But I don't think too many coaches have won state championships in both. I know that it's been done, but how meaningful would it be for you to do that?
Well, honestly, I probably wouldn't know what to do with myself. Be honest with you, I kind of, if we can, want to go to win the district first and get into the playoffs, first time ever for the girls in our school history, that's the mark. But showing them OP is for, you can't keep telling me we want to be good and we're not willing to do these things that the good teams do. And like you said, we watched DeMatha and Sidwell and Friends because both those coaches are from our area and they both the top of their class. But I wouldn't know what to do myself that happy. But I'd be happy just winning the district and getting in the playoffs to start off.
Yeah. We'll take it one step at a time, right, Coach? So you've got a great guy in your building, Mike Harris, and he says great things about you. I used to referee his games. He used to try to run me out of the gym sometimes, but in terms of a coach, he's first class, man. That guy can do it. So you guys together, I can see great things for Freedom basketball. So let's talk a little bit about before we get to you getting the head coaching job. I do want to talk about social media. When I was a kid, and maybe a little bit before your time, a basketball coach at a high school was a god. I mean, you were a celebrity in the area. Yeah, you walk down the street. Oh, that's Coach Overton. It was a big deal. I mean, Coach Henry from Remember the Titans was the head football coach at Robinson when I was there. He was just a god to us. And over time, I think coaches have felt underappreciated, low pay, not the respect. Parents are crazy, not getting the respect from the AD. You know the drill. You're a coach. I do think with social media now, you guys got this wonderful Prince William County sports Facebook group. Kirk and Bert are covering. You got this DC group that's covering high school Scholastic Network or something like that. I mean, Matthew Hatfield does a tremendous job covering sports. I mean, I see you on YouTube and on social media all the time. So I think coaches are getting more spotlight than in the past. Are you enjoying that social media? How big a part of your job is that?
Well, I think it's like you said, you enjoy it from a standpoint of, your program getting notoriety and having success. I think the thing I like about it, and don't not include yourself. I think that all the platforms are doing a good job bringing light to the sports in our area. And then I think what you do with the coaches part mainly kind of lets people, like you said, even you've had disagreements with stuff you thought I'd do, but it kind of lets people meet the person, you know what I mean? Outside just the sport. And all those things I think are a big deal. The other thing I love about it, to be honest, is showing your kids, how to speak, on camera and when they're doing stuff like that. I think that goes a long way. And, we've even looked at it with our kids, like, look at this, you're not speaking in complete sentences. You didn't answer the question. So I think you kind of get some practice communication-wise that you wouldn't get normally till you got to college and stuff like that. But I also think, like you said, it's bringing multiple communities together, where people maybe, if it wasn't for your group or the Prince William County group, the people in Phoebus wouldn't be talking about the football up here, or the people wouldn't be talking about Fairfax High School. So I think it's bringing the football and sports communities closer. I don't think I know that. I see it. Guys that normally wouldn't talk to, have relationships with, you have them kind of because of these platforms. And, for you guys to continue to, go outside of just your own area, like you said, is only expanding that network. So I think it's been positive so far.
It's a lot of fun. It's funny because a lot of times people thought I was criticizing you. I was trying to get back at Jay Golston. Jay Golston talks so much smack. And, it's just, it's funny how this high school sports and social media has made a guy like Jay, like the Stephen A. Smith of Virginia football. And it is a lot of fun. It made this season great. And like I said, this is the first year that I followed football. And it's basically because your team got me interested. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And then I started participating in it. But let's get back to your football evolution. Now, what made you such a successful coach? Now, look, you played at Hylton. You were a great player, and you had some coaching experience. You took over the job at a school where, a lot of urban schools, the kids really want to play basketball, and sometimes it's difficult to really bring in the infrastructure, the coaching staff, all the things you need to be successful at a school are hard to bring sometimes in football, as you know. So what made you different? How are you able to take this job at Freedom and to build this into such a great program?
Well, be honest with you, like you said, I had the luxury of, I played for a good high school coach. I played both levels, playing junior college football, then playing, Division II football, going to Tennessee State, which is D1, and then playing arena football for Coach Matt Steeple at the highest level. And you kind of take a little bit from everybody. And I just been blessed to have some great coaching mentors. And I tell people all the time, one thing that I don't take for granted is being able to sit in an office with Coach Brown, who's in the Hall of Fame, and his son, John Brown, every day for 6 years, for 8 hours a day. Not just the football conversations, but hearing the parent conversations, the interaction with the college coaches. I got to hear and see everything A to Z. Then on the other side of that, I've seen people's dreams unfold and die at the highest level, whether it be NFL tryouts, arena football with Coach Steeple, and being able to, his ability to adjust on the fly, because, arena football, your roster's changing all the time, and keeping stuff simple. Him and Coach Armstrong taught me that, and don't make it difficult. But, the main thing at Freedom that had to be changed was the culture. You know what I mean? I think once you create a winning culture, it kind of trickles down every year. And that's what I said we've been able to do. My first year at Freedom, we were actually being criticized by the other sports because we were practicing and working out all the time in the spring. And I'll never forget, it was a day, it was raining, and the soccer teams decided not to practice. But we were out of season, but we got done living. We said, well, we're going out there in the rain to work out and run. And they came storming inside. What is he doing? He's out there in the rain. And, the AD said, well, Coach, I didn't tell you guys you couldn't practice. You decided to come into the gym and practice. And, it's always that, not looking for, like you said, no excuses. If we can't get on the field, we were in the driver's ed lot in sneakers going over stuff. And like you said, it's working at it year round. I think that's the part that people, don't know, that we put a lot of, work into this outside of just, during the season. And I've learned that you can't skip a step. Even this year, I felt like a weakness that I had was the weight room. I just didn't feel like we were getting the gains that the South Counties were getting, the Stone Bridges in the weight room. So, me and Coach Johnson really looked at that, and then we completely changed the way we did the weight room. And that even paid off for us this year. So, it's always evolving and getting better, and, just not being too stubborn to, admit your own faults and weaknesses and get better. But we had to change the culture. And once you do that, now it's the expectation and the standard. We don't have to speak on culture and what's expected to do to win, nor does Stonebridge or Highland Springs or Madison. You know what I mean? Once you build your program to that, that's kind of the standard, and it's set for the rest of the time.
We're gonna get back to freedom, but I forgot. Let's listen to your post freedom football story. You mentioned quickly junior college, Tennessee State, and arena football. I bet you some of that arena football shows up in your offense today. Why don't you talk a little bit about your post Hylton football journey?
Yeah, like you said, it was like you said, another person that can speak on, making sure you take on business and doing things all the way, where I was super talented, football wise. Like you said, I had to go JUCO route because I didn't meet my grade expectation level. So I had to go the hard way to do it, which allows me to speak on it. And, why I like to think it's contributed to why, we've had so many guys go on to the next level the right way. And our guys get there and they stay at the next level and they're able to do the schoolwork and stuff. And then, like you said, to all the heartbreak, getting moved positions. Because, back then, people didn't really want the running quarterback style. They wanted you to be more traditional. So getting moved to DB, being good at that, then getting moved back to quarterback because now the quarterback is hurt and you're the best person after him. And then going into arena football and playing everything, quarterback, receiver, DB. Like you said, it just expanded my knowledge. And even having NFL team tryouts and having, people tell me your potential going to get me fired. They need some results. So, I take all these life lessons, as we all do, even with our own kids. And, you kind of open yourself up to your kids, your players, and you let them know, I'm just not telling you, I'm speaking to you on this firsthand. I've seen it, go all directions. Even my brother, I told you, played in the NFL 8 years, but he went to Shepherd, a D2 school. I tell people all the time, don't downplay, the opportunity to go to the next level because it's not, D1. Any dreams you have can be accomplished no matter what level you go to. So, I think it's just my experiences have made me well-rounded and allow me to relate to a lot of people's, human side.
Well, you got, and by the way, my high school basketball teammate, Chris Warren, made a great career after going to Shepherd as well. Well, you mentioned, I know you put a lot of your kids in Division I in college, which is great and which is amazing. But when you think about your journey, do you think kids know today how tough it is to get to the pros? Not just how tough it is to get to the pros, how tough it is to stay in the pros. How one injury, I remember I talked to Willie Pyle. I don't know if you know Willie. Willie played at West Potomac. Yeah, great dude. And one thing, Willie broke his vertebrae. He broke something in his shoulder or his back. I forgot what it was. But no matter what he did, they held that against him. Whenever he would try to go to a new team, he was 100% healthy. But they'd bring up the fact that he'd had this back at Tech his second or third year. So much has to go right for you to make it a pro career out of it. Do you think kids today, and I know you're putting kids in college, which is great, but do you think kids really know the difficulty it is to make it in the next level?
I don't think they know, but I do think they understand and they start to see it. Because once the recruiting process starts, you're like, okay, now I see, like, this isn't even NFL, this is just college. and people questioning my ability. I think, like you said, so I know that I don't think they know at the beginning. You know, they kind of see those guys on TV and think it happened easy, but I think they start to find out very quickly now. And I think something that you touched on that I even preach all the time, not going to the NFL isn't just about your required ability to play football. It's not like basketball. As cool as Odell Beckham is, and Jerry Jeudy, and Joe Burrows, I tell the kids all the time, they went to somebody's university for 3 years and sat in a classroom and did work. For 3 years. Don't miss that part. So you got to have the work habits, the discipline to be able to do that first. So if you can't do that, you're missing the picture. And when you say that to them, the kids look at you like, wow, you see Odell Beckham now, he cool. And, like I tell them, are you cooler than Caleb Williams? He just flew across the country to get the Heisman Trophy. And when he got back on Monday, he went and sat in somebody's class. So I think, again, that's just me. I'm always going to give my kids the truth of it. And I'm going to make my kids aware. Going to college alone is a blessing. But again, don't talk about you want to go to NFL and all that. And I'm chasing behind you around biology 1 in the 10th grade in high school.
That's great, Coach. Well, look, so let's go back to Freedom. Great journey, but I think it's important that people hear that. But so at Freedom, you have to change the culture, and football culture is so important. When I talk to Coach Counts, you can tell why Madison's so successful, because they have all these pieces that have been in place for many, many years. So it's a huge advantage to have that in place. And so you had to build that at Freedom, had some great talent already. What was the difference? Why was it this year that you broke through? Now, I said I wasn't paying attention last year, but I understood you had a great regular season, got to the state playoffs, and you lost. What was the difference this year? Why were you able to get over the hump this year and you weren't in the other years?
I think it's like you said, it's a combination of things. We got better and older offensively. I think last year we started all sophomores and freshmen at the skill spots outside of the quarterback. We got better and we grew up a year. I told you earlier, the weight room, we were better. I got better as a coaching staff with how we approached the weight room and what we got done. And then our quarterback, his ability to do all things in the offense made us, pretty tough. It's hard to find. Like you said, my previous quarterback, Davis Bryson, is a Division I football player and was that type of talent. I mean, no doubt. But he got hurt the year before, so he kind of got into it his senior year on the fly. He missed his whole junior year because he broke his leg. I think if he would have had the same opportunity, you'd have saw this last year, but he just didn't. And then there was COVID, so he didn't have the off-season stuff that you normally would have the year before. So I just think, like you said, a combination of all those things coming together. And like you said, we got better. We grew up, and we were better in the weight room this year. Like you said, I think our program is to a point where we're always going to be, one of the final 6-8 teams, at our class. It's just like you said, getting over the hump. I think it started in the off season with our approach at the weight room, and then our off season work was phenomenal as well.
Wait, you knew early on that you had something special, because I understand you handled DeMatha pretty well in the scrimmage from what I heard, and then you beat Stonebridge, and that's Stonebridge. They were graduating some players, but every year Stonebridge is going to be tough under Mickey Thompson. So you must have known right away that this is going to be a good year for you.
Yeah, like you said, I want to be clear. DeMatha, because we played him this year in a game, okay, in a regular game. Now, we did not manhandle them. I don't want to put that on tape. But the year before, I felt like we physically could not stand in front of them.
Oh, is that right?
They were able to push us around. This year, they could not push us around. You know what I mean? We were able to physically stand in there and match them, where last year we weren't. Even though we had a great scrimmage, great competition, we couldn't. This year we could. And then Stonebridge, the year before, we lost 33-31 to them. We dropped the pass on fourth down, trying to go in and win the game. And so we kind of was in a shootout with them. And then this year, again, we're bigger, we're stronger. We kind of able to hold that offense to 65 rushing yards. All right. That's when I was like, okay, DeMatha can run on us with a 4-star running back and 3 Division I linemen. And now, you get to the season and you hold Stonebridge to 65 yards rushing. It kind of let me know defensively that we were going to be very, very stout. So, like you said, those two were good indicators early on. But again, it was like you said, just confirmed what we already thought. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, we're on to something here. We just got to finish.
One of the straight. So your games are pretty predictable. I tried to watch some of them once I got on, but I mean, they were. I was telling Coach Cuss, most games you didn't even get the third down. Most drives, and so it was so quick. After a while, I had to turn the computer on something else. But one game I didn't see, I heard it was a shootout. Was the Champ game? That was kind of a high scoring game, right? When you play Champ.
Yeah. So John Champ, I tell everyone, it wasn't a shootout because at one point I think we were up like 56-21. Mm-hmm. Like they were down pretty bad. But I will say this: John Champ's quarterback is probably the best quarterback we played against this year. Him and the Madison quarterback, for sure, I would say. He's very good. And I will also say this: John Champ does a good job with their offense. They're a very fast-paced team. They formation you all over the place. They did do a good job early on creating some mismatches. But, they do that. We saw that with them. We knew it was going to be, early. You had to kind of get acclimated to what they were doing. But their quarterback is very talented. And then their coaching staff, they do a great job of creating mismatches and turning your defense into thinkers and not players. They make you think. And so they do a great job of that. I will give them their credit. But yes, definitely. It wasn't necessarily a shootout because we were up a lot, but they scored a lot of points on us. I think they scored 35. They scored 35. Again, they do a good job. No shame in that. I'm not going to downgrade them at all because they do have a good offense. And I think the key is they do have a good quarterback, but they also do a good job of creating stuff.
Yeah. Well, what was your feeling going into the Patriot game? Now, you guys, Patriot, I believe, was undefeated at the time, and they put some nice scores together as well. But it was just so hard to tell because you don't know what the competition level is like. I think they had beaten Champ, right? Patriot had beaten Champ.
Yeah, that was the shootout game when they won like 79-62 or something.
Crazy. So, but what was your feeling? I mean, you ended up beating Patriot pretty soundly. Going in, were you concerned at all, or did you think that this is a game we should match up pretty well?
Well, I mean, you always, every team presents its concerns. So I never sit in my office and say, well, we're going to easily beat them. Because as you know, high school kids will go wacko on you any second.
Yeah.
So you never do that. But I felt like what Patriot was good at offensively, running power and stuff like that, that was our strength. And like I said to you earlier, I feel like we played against the two best teams we were going to face doing that in DeMatha and Stone Ridge, and they weren't able to do it. So I didn't think Patriot was going to be able to come out and push us around and run the football like they wanted to. And that held true. We were able to hold them in check running. And then, always I kind of joke with my staff. Offensively, I come up with a plan. But I always tell the staff and the kids, once the game start, then we'll really know what the other team will do. Because that's the part that you touched on earlier. With our offense, you never know how people really going to line up. You're looking at them line up one way versus somebody else. So once I see what you're willing to live with defensively, I always say that's when the game starts. And I think that they were willing to live with, Jeff running the football, trying to stay over top of the receivers. And, we were able to adjust and get that going. But, they're a good program. They've been at the top of the region, like you said, with Battlefield the last 3 years. I just thought, football-wise, I didn't think what they did, they didn't match up well with us as far as what they did well, because we were really good at stopping, the run and power formations, where, like you just said, John Champ was able to create some uncertainties by spreading us out and tempoing and doing things like that. That kind of takes the coaching out of it. Like we just talked about in basketball, it's like somebody pressing you. But Patriot, I feel like we matched up well against. Now, again, they got dominant guys up front who are good. So you always got to hope you guys can withstand the test of time. And sometimes you don't see how good and physical teams are until it's in person. But I feel like we matched up well versus.
Yeah. Well, let's get to the Madison game. So I saw Madison in person because my next door neighbor is Miles Rossman, a star wide receiver for Yorktown. So I actually went to a game, my first football game in a long time, and watched Madison play. I was so impressed with Madison. It was an old school football game, Coach, Yorktown and Madison. 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And then, but Madison had skill players. They could, play action pass, and they can get you long. They did a couple times. And then Madison handled Fairfax very easily. Well, they beat Centerville, which I think was a nice win. Beat Fairfax very easy. And so Madison was definitely one of the hottest teams in the state. I mean, they lost the first 3 games, but they had played some really good football to end the season. So what was your mindset coming in? They have a tough, big running back. He's a load, and they got some skill players that can make some plays.
Again, you kind of always got to respect, what they do. And that's what we said. And fortunately, we were able to see them early on because we had the Stonebridge film. So we saw them versus Centerville, and we saw them versus Stonebridge. So you knew what they were about. And again, they were another team. Offensively, I felt like we wouldn't have a problem stopping the run. I felt like they're kind of like the 49ers in Michigan, where they kind of formation you and shift to run the football effectively. But it's not the run plays off of that. It's the play action stuff that they do a good job of shifting and then getting somebody lined up where they can be wide open. So you see, the work that their offensive staff and their head coach has in their offense. So that they're a lot to prepare for. I will say that. But again, I didn't feel like they could stand in front of us in the trenches. I didn't think they were going to be able to block us and run the football. I was honestly more concerned with their passing and their play action plays. I didn't think people were talking about the quarterback enough.
Mac Lewis.
Yeah, that quarterback is good, man. He don't miss. He doesn't miss much, and he's got moxie, and he'll stand in there. I like him, but I didn't think they would run the ball on us very well. But I also, like I said, I saw what they did do well, and I didn't think Fairfax matched up well with them because all that running, wing T and high formation, that's going to kind of work in Madison's hands, where we're kind of going to spread you out and within the entire field. And we were able to do that and create some run gaps and stuff like that inside. I thought Madison did, probably a better job than anybody all year getting first downs on us when they had the ball, which resulted in us, not having as many possessions. And then I thought on defense, they did a good job of not letting us get behind them for the big pass plays all the time. And they kind of made us, grind it out and drive the ball and walk the dog down the field. And like you said, I was able to draw from some experience not doing that in the state championship. So this time, like you said, I was prepared to do that, whatever it took to win the game.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the game. They never could get back into the game, but it was at least some competition. And I didn't see the champ game, but I still enjoyed it. Coach, this has been great. I do want to give you a chance to talk about some of your players, especially if you have some unsung heroes that we may not know about. Because Tristan Evans, terrific quarterback. TJ Bush, he's going to Liberty now. Really a great defender up front. Aaron Duncan, Adrian Crispin. But why don't you talk about some of your players, maybe even some of your unsung heroes for a bit?
Well, I think, like you said, it starts up front, man. And our offensive line don't get the recognition they should. Adrian Cressman, who has offers from North Carolina Central, Hampton, and Fairmont, and West Virginia. Our right tackle, our left tackle, Big Juju Stanley. Our whole offensive line is pretty daggone good. I think, like you said, if you got running backs and receivers with those numbers, and then last two I'll shout out because I feel like the receivers, they get enough notoriety, is our two middle linebackers were first years and they're both sophomores, and their maturity, Braxton Hunt and Devin Reeves, from where they came from the beginning of the season to now, was phenomenal. And the little guy, number 8 inside, TJ Bush is good, but I think Jewel Harris, the ticket, may be just as good, just not as physically imposing. He was a welcoming surprise for him to be first team all region, all district. How he was a big boost for us. So shout out those guys. And then again, you do a great job, but the assistant coaches for everybody's staff don't get enough love. And, our coaches keep us grounded. I think I said it on another show. I had this elaborate game plan for Patriot week. And my coaches were like, Coach, I just think we're doing way too much. Just keep it simple. And I changed it, and we came back, and obviously it was better. So shout out to all my assistants. And like you said, everybody else that supports and makes all these programs, my trainer, my counseling, academic group. A lot of things go into the making these high school sports go. So just shout out all those people, and I love and appreciate every one of them.
Yeah, that's great, Coach. And one guy I want to give a shout out to is your center, Hughes. He made a huge fumble recovery. There were six white jerseys around the ball, and somehow this 5'9" center gets that was a huge play because that you were able to score, went back up 3 scores, and that was a very nice play. It was just a very nice play. It's good to see one of your non-skill players come up with such a huge play like that.
Big Walter. The crazy thing is, he had hurt his elbow in the game and kept playing through it. He's another guy, Walter, like the linebackers. First year starter last year as a 10th grader, and now look at him. He's a dominating force, smart. So, yeah, big shout out to him as well. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So, well, Coach, one thing when you put your team into context, I was a little disappointed that the Washington Post had you like 5th or 6th in the final rating. I mean, all the points you scored. I think St. John's was number 1. They had lost 4 games. And I know the teams they lost to may be nationally ranked. I understand, but it made me feel a little flat. I mean, I'm glad you got Coach of the Year, but it was interesting that they had you rated a little bit low. And then in the rest of the state, we had 4 incredible teams. And I don't want to take anything away from Graham, who looked their scores were amazing, and also Riverhead's a great program. But Highland Springs, they beat teams from other states. You got Phoebus just had an incredible year to beat the champ. Dinwiddie had a really exciting team with a sophomore, maybe the second most exciting sophomore in the state with Jeff Overton. But put your team in proper context, or does it even matter to you? Do you think about where your team belongs and amongst all these other great teams?
Not necessarily. You know better than me, Jay. It took a long time for North Virginia to get any type of notoriety with Washington Post. You know what I mean? So I'm shout out my man Spencer, who does advocate for North Virginia. But I think, like you said, it's gonna be hard to get over top of those private schools. That's kind of the Washington Post's, babies. You know what I mean? Fortunately, we'll play DeMatha in a game this year. So hopefully, we can make some noise. But to me, it doesn't matter. I think we've solidified our place this year by winning it all. To be honest with you, Coach Lauren Johnson from Highland Springs, a good friend of mine. And when we were coming into the stadium, his kids and parents were cheering for us. Lauren hugged me, gave me some encouraging words right before going into the locker room. So number respect and admiration for all those guys. Honestly, people going to debate it and argue it till they blue in the face. Always have, always will. But again, I'm just happy to finally get a seat at the table by winning one. You know what I mean? So much respect.
Yeah. Well, last question, Coach. And again, this has been great. We recently Deion Sanders went from Jackson State to Colorado, and you're a young man, and you can never begrudge. People have their own personal journey, and sometimes they have to do that as well. What are some of your long-term career goals? I guess you probably 42, 43, Coach, 41.
39.
Oh my God. Young guy. So you've done a lot before the age of 40. So what kind of things would you like to accomplish in your young career, in your career?
Well, I just think, like you said, right now, I've had some opportunities for college, just wasn't the right fit or the right place. I just want to continue to evolve and, continue to push, my area forward. I mean, I don't have any, preconceived notions of what's what. I think, like you said, when you're dealing with young people, success can be measured in a vast amount of ways. Just hope to continue to be able to be impactful, man, with kids and continue to go in that direction no matter what. Like I told you, even in my work life, I work with people that are less fortunate. So like I said, I just think this is my gift. And I've had tons of plans for myself, whether it was NFL, anything. And God keeps spinning me around and said, this is what I want you to do. So I'm happy. I'm loving life right now, honestly. If something bigger, better comes along, I'll deal with it as it happens. But I'm here for my kids and my school, and I'm happy with it right now.
Yeah, well, great. We did an incredible job, Coach. Thanks for being a good sport and coming on. One thing about social media, one thing about being good at anything, people are always going to take shots at you, but you handle it with grace, just like you handled your team. And I really enjoyed hearing your thoughts on football, on the team. It's obvious why you're so successful. You're deep thinking about the game. It's not, you just don't have a lot of great athletes, but I can tell you really think really deeply about football. And so it was really fun talking football with you and to really hear how you're able to do take your team on this incredible journey. So I'm excited about following football next year. I can't wait to see. I understand that Highland Springs might be Class 6 next year. So yeah, so I'm excited about some of these matchups in the future. So look, hopefully we can keep in contact and do this again sometime. But I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me.
And I appreciate you, Jay, man. I know, like you said, I appreciate you, taking the time to get to know me regardless of what, you thought or didn't think before. And like you said, it's just, I think that's something too that shouldn't go, unseen. Like you said, two men, regardless you agree or disagree, can talk. And I think the rest of the world need to know that it don't have to be, turn into a circus. You know what I mean? It's love and respect no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, Coach, I coach basketball, and you're the coach I always wanted to be. My kids are still in touch with me many years later, and I was the inspirational guy, but I just didn't have the titles, and so I have a lot of respect for people that can win, and coaches that can win. It's not easy. Everyone's trying to knock you off. You got parents. You always don't get paid that much. So I know how tough it is. I have a lot of respect for coaches. So and right now you're on top of the heap, and it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to get you off of it. So anyway, look, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and let's keep in touch. Let's do this again, and maybe we can even preview next year's season.
Done deal, guaranteed. I appreciate you.
Yeah. All right, Coach. Have a good one now, buddy.